This video is brought to you by the Abbey Community Skills Society. Hello and welcome back. My name is Laszlo and I'm your virtual instructor. In this video, we're going to be exploring our first game concept that we plan on building. This concept is Flappy Bird. It's a remake of Flappy Bird, and I'm just going to demonstrate the game to you quickly before we even start discussing it. So this is a remake of the game that I actually made using Game Maker Studio for the web. We'll be using Godot, but we can achieve something very similar. So the game itself, as you can see, you've got a little birdie and you've got some pipes coming at you and you have to dodge the pipes, and it gives you the score at the end. There's a title screen, you've got a bird. When you tap the space bar, the pipes come at you and you just try and dodge them. But as soon as you make contact either with a pipe or the ground, it's game over. Okay, so that is the game in a nutshell. It's fairly simple, but it's a great game to start your game design journey on. So let's discuss all the different things that we noticed. So rooms, how many rooms do we think we have in a game like this? I'd be kind of tempted to say that maybe I have 3 rooms, one for the menu, one for the game, and one for game over. That is an option. That's one way you can do this. Also, just know that building games, there's so many different ways to solve the same problem. So if you went with 3 rooms, that's fine. I'm going to actually go with 1 room. So for rooms, I'm just going to say 1 room. And that room is going to contain all components. So it's going to contain the menu, the game itself, and the game over. In terms of images, okay, so how many images do we have? Let's just draw some here. So I know for sure that we had a ground. And I also noticed that this ground was moving, so that's good to know. So that's 1 image. Now, in a previous video, I talked about the size of the game. I'll talk about it again. So I'm planning on building this game to be 400 pixels wide and 600 pixels tall. So knowing that, I can already start listing some of the things that I need to draw. So if I have this ground texture here, I know that its size is going to have to be 400 pixels wide. So let's just put that up here. And its height is going to be probably 1/5 of this room, so maybe about 120 pixels. So the way I did 1/5 was I took 600, divided that by 5, and that gives me 120. You could go even bigger, you could go 150, even 200, depending on how you want your game to look. So that's 1 image. Let's just make a note of that. So that's the ground. I noticed that there were some clouds, some bushes, and maybe a city in the background. So let's call that, I'm just going to call that background. And that's going to take up, you know what? It can take up the whole screen. So the background itself, I'm going to set its height to be 600 and its width to be 400. That's because you can overlap images. So I'm going to overlap the ground on top of the background. And the background, of course, is going to contain, well, whatever. It's up to you to decide what you want it to have. So let's say background. Next, we had the bird. So I'm just going to draw a bird like that. I think the size for him, we'll have to experiment with different sizes, but probably something along the lines of maybe 64 pixels this way and 32 in height. We'll try this. If it's too big or too small, we can always make it smaller or bigger. So let's say the bird. That's another image we'll have to draw. And the bird, if you watched carefully, it actually had 2 images. It had one for its wing down and one for its wing up. So I'm going to say bird times 2. Every little animation you see in a 2D game is something that you have to draw. So we've got ground, background, and bird. And I believe there was one last thing, which were kind of these pipes or obstacles that were in our way. And I did notice that the top and the bottom of the obstacle look the same. So I think it's enough to only draw kind of like 1/2 of it. We don't have to draw both halves. So let's call that, I'll call it the pipe. But once again, you don't have to make this an Angry Bird game, or sorry, a Flappy Bird game. It could be, you could be a Superman dodging, I don't know, pillars of rocks or something like that. It could be anything like that. The one thing to note about the pipe is we know that the pipe tends to move up and down as the game progresses. So because of that, if I was to bring a pipe up higher than its base reached, then it would create a funny looking graphic. So I need to make sure the pipe is not just half the screen size, but it's actually bigger than half. So So I think the size for the pipe will be something like at least 400 pixels high. And then for width, well, for width it could be anything. Let's just say 32 for now. We might stretch it out to be bigger. And with that, I think we've got all of our images. For sound effects, there's no music in this game. We won't be creating any music, but we do have a sound effect for the wing flap. So that's one sound effect. Another sound effect is the collision. So those are the two sound effects that we have. And then nodes or objects. So this is what represents all the things that we need in our game. Well, nodes and objects almost always correspond directly to how many images you have. So in this case, we're going to have a ground node, which is going to move. We're going to have a bird. We're going to have a background. And we're going to have a pipe. These are the nodes that I can think of so far. Yeah, let's just stick with this. Moving on. What is the design and flow of the game? So it's good to know the exact order the things happen in, and I've kind of made notes already. So the first thing is you press space. That starts the game. So when you're at the first screen, that button is blinking, you press space, it starts the game. As soon as you press space, the pipes are going to start moving. They're going to move left, and the bird starts falling. So there's two different objects here, or nodes, that we already see, and they behave differently. So pipes move to the left, bird starts falling. When you press the space bar, the bird flies. So every time I press the space bar, my bird shoots upwards, kind of does a jump. When there's a collision, I get a game over. And when you press space bar after a collision has happened, we start a new game. Okay, so that's the general flow of this game. It is a simple game, as I said before, but it's a great way to start. All right, so now that we know what the design and flow of the game is and what all the assets that we need to make, we can move on and we can start creating these actual things. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.